afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Today we're spotlighting the powerful and positive impact that libraries and librarians have in our lives. Libraries are often a focal point of our community, and the librarians inside are a wealth of knowledge for both the young and the old. So, as part of National Library Week, we are featuring two librarians. They are each going to review several books, and at the end of the program, I'll let you know how you can get a free list of the books they're recommending. Joining me are Bree Drappa, who is the director of the Westford Public Library, and Joy Warland, who is a consultant with the Vermont Department of Libraries. Thank you both for coming in. This is so exciting. And so Bree, maybe you can get us started, or to begin with.
Well, today I brought a wonderful picture book, The Day You Begin. It is by Jacqueline Woodson, who is a fabulous author. She's won numerous awards, and the pictures in this book are also beautiful. It's about feeling a little uncomfortable in our own skin. And I think we all can experience this, and children experience this when they go to school. Their hair might be different, or their clothes, or the color of their skin. Something makes them feel uncomfortable. Their lunch might look different than other people's. And that can throw up some barriers in our lives where we don't want to share our differences and share the things that make us unique. And this book encourages kids to kind of take that first step, which can be difficult, and maybe go outside your comfort zone and realize that we're all different and that we can all be better together, and that these differences don't divide us, but they kind of free us and let us see the beauty in each other.
And be curious, which all librarians are, of course.
And this book is on the Red Clover Book Award list, which is Vermont's picture book picture book list for kids in K through 4th grade. So they'll be reading it next year in school, and maybe it'll be their favorite. They get to vote on it.
There you go. Is that from Vermont? Is that a Vermont?
It's not a Vermont author, but it is on the Vermont Red Clover Book Award list.
Okay, great. And Joy, what's your first up?
So moving on to my first book is Half Wild by Robin MacArthur, and Robin MacArthur is a Vermont author, and so we sort of put these together to get a kick off with a Vermont theme. Half Wild is a book of 11 stories. There are, I think, 40 characters in it, and it spans over 40 years, and it's about various people living kind of a gritty life in Vermont. It's not the life that we necessarily see every day in Chittenden County or Washington County, or coming up here as a tourist or that kind of thing. These are people that have multi-generational stories that are dealing with the harsh climate of Vermont. They're dealing with poverty issues, food insecurity, illnesses. There's a theme of their relationship with the place. So I feel like the state of Vermont is actually a character of this book.
Right.
So there's a lot of people who are struggling with lack of opportunity, wanting to stay but not having opportunities. There's people who've left and come back for various reasons, family reasons. There's people who don't ever want to leave because it's beautiful and they love it and they're very tied to the land, but they don't have a lot of opportunity. So a lot of interdynamics between families, multi-generational people living in the same place, and the sort of complexity of that I know as sort of somebody who moved around a lot and it doesn't live anywhere near anyone else in my family. That's a very different thing. I don't have to deal with my family every day. So there's that kind of element to it as well.
So much to talk about.
Yeah, and they're all different. So there's 11 stories. They're not tied together really with any sort of theme, except for this kind of theme of what is it like to be living in rural Vermont.
Fabulous. So we have lots of books to talk about, so back to Bree.
We do. I'm going to talk about Killers of the Flower Moon next. Killers of the Flower Moon is a true crime story, so it's nonfiction. For those readers who like good mystery, it will also resonate with them. It is about the really sad story of the Osage Indian murders. This was a mass murder that took place in our country that really helped cement the FBI as a national investigative force. The Osage Indian tribe was one of the wealthiest tribes because of oil, and they all started dying. And this book unfolds this true event, but it's like watching true crime on television. You meet these characters, you meet the lawman, you meet the killer, but you don't know who it is. So it's a true mystery, but it also highlights the sad event in history that I had never heard of, but yet was such a formative event in the creation of the FBI. I think it also does a good job of highlighting the inequality because the people who were being murdered were Native American, and highlights some of the inequality that happened then and today.
And about what time period?
This happened right around the Depression.
Yeah.
So
30s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, fascinating. And back to Joy.
Right, so we're going to segue to another book about a very different experience of Native Americans. These are contemporary urban Native Americans, so they're living in Oakland, and it's a very different look at sort of the narrative that we often find in literature and even in the news about Native American people. There's a crime element, there's a technology element, there's, so they're all gathering in Oakland to go to the big Oakland powwow, and there's 12 different characters.
Oakland, California.
Oakland, California. Yeah, so very urban. And some of them are coming back home to Oakland. Some of them have lived there all along. So they're all going to come to this powwow, gathering for various different reasons. One's going to perform, one is going back to honor a family member, one is coming back after recently becoming sober and coming back to sort of re-establish a relationship with her family. So there's an element of sort of suspense about it because you kind of get a feeling something bad is going to happen. And there's also all these different characters that are sort of tied with the thread of the powwow. It's told from their different characters, so I would just recommend people, like, if it's a little bit of a struggle to get into this one at first, keep with it because it's worth it.
It's always good to hear that.
Yeah, so yeah, and just a very suspenseful, good story, and also just an important, just informational piece to think
Right,
about.
you learn a lot.
Yeah, urban Indians, which is something that I know I don't have any experience with, so a good look at that
Great.
sort of culturally as well.
Great tip. And back to Bree.
Well, things that we might not experience in everyday life. This is The Hazelwood. The Hazelwood is a young adult book, so kind of for the older teens and early 20s. This has everything a great young adult book should have. It's got magic, intrigue, creepy prep school environment, stilted romance, and a fairy tale world coming to life. Young Alice, her mother has gone missing. The only note said, "Stay away from the Hazelwood." The Hazelwood happens to be an imaginary, we think, place that her grandmother created in a cult fiction novel. But it turns out that the Hazelwood is not as imaginary as we all thought it was, as the characters start coming to life and hunting down Alice and her family. So it sounds more fantastical, but it is based in modern day reality. So you have things like coffee shops and cell phones and all of that mixed in with the fantastic. So I thought it was a really compelling read, and I'm super excited that the sequel is coming out next year.
Oh, exciting. Okay, so get it, read it now.
Read
Back
it
to
now.
Joy.
Okay, so this is a book called My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry, and it's written by Frederick Backman, who a lot of people have read A Man Called Ove. This is another book
Right.
by him. And we sort of paired it with the Hazelwood, and I hadn't heard you describe that quite as much. It pairs even better than I knew when we were talking about on the phone about this, because this is also about a grandmother who creates an imaginary world. So the main character is really Elsa, who's only 7, but Elsa seems a lot older than 7. And her best friend is her grandmother, who tells her stories each night when she's going to sleep about this other land, and there's all these characters in the other land. And it has sort of a fantasy element to it. Well, then the grandmother, this isn't a spoiler because it's right near the beginning, she dies. And so Elsa's left on her own, and she's given all these letters that her grandmother has written that she's supposed to deliver to people. They're basically apologizing for things that Elsa begins to learn about. So she gets to know all these people, and then as she gets to know them, there's a thread between that and the imaginary world that her grandmother has been telling her in these bedtime stories for her whole life, basically. And so there's this kind of interweaving of the fantasy with reality and all these completely eccentric characters, including Elsa herself, who's just delightful.
Grandmothers, I love the way grandmothers. We have to
Yes.
keep going because you guys have brought so many fabulous books. But Joy, you had another one. You were going to You were going to
Oh,
talk
I'm
about
going
Daisy.
right next to Daisy
Good.
Jones. Now, this is something completely
Oh,
different.
okay.
And so one of the things we thought would be fun to do is we talk about different formats of books. And so this is a print copy of Daisy Jones, but I actually listened to this book on an audio book because, you know, I hope everybody knows they can get audiobooks through their library, downloadable audiobooks or CDs from their libraries. But with your library card, you can download audiobooks
Awesome.
to listen to on your phone or and so Daisy Jones is a book about a fictional 70s rock band, but it seems so real. Like, I actually had to go back and look. This really is made up, right? Because it seems, it's a story we've all heard, the beautiful but troubled lead
Right.
singer, the guitar player who's tormented and dealing with substance abuse, and his brother who's kind of playing second fiddle, so to speak. And so it's their story of sort of their rise to fame and the struggles of all that. But it's really, really well done. So even though some of the characters are sort of like, yeah, we know this person, they seem very original in their own way. And I just want to really pitch the audiobook because I actually had listened to it, picked it thinking about
too.
music, but there isn't really music on it because it's a fictional band, because they don't have any recordings, but the voices on it are great. And I would highly recommend a good audiobook because the voices can really
I
add
love
to it.
audiobooks, and we're already almost running out of time. So quickly, the music shop. And
The Music Shop is another great love story, but also love of music story. Has a wonderful audiobook, great narration, but it's about an aging record store owner meets a mysterious woman. Love and backstory ensues. It also has its own Spotify playlist, which is kind of cool, so you can listen to the iconic music while you're reading
So
it.
quickly, some books about libraries because we are already out of time. But we love
okay.
libraries and ban this book. It's
Ban
not
this book. We
steal
don't
this
do-
book. It's ban this book.
Yes, and this is something we don't like to do at libraries. Ban This Book is a great middle grade book about fourth grade Amy Ann, who has her favorite book has gone missing from the school library, and she wants to know what happened to it. It has been banned by the school board, and
We're
so
going to have a whole nother thing about banned books because this is so awesome. And I'm sorry
Right.
we are already out of time. Now, to get a list of all of these books we've reviewed this afternoon, you can write to the Vermont Department of Libraries at 60 Washington Street in Barre. The zip code is 05641. Or if you prefer, you can call the department at 802-636-0040. And we'll post that book list on Across the Fence website and our Facebook page. Thank you, Joy and Bree. Sorry that was so short. Awesome books. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining us.
you.
for having
And thank
us.
you for joining us across the fence.